Charlie again. I just wanted to, I kind of got the idea maybe I should go over some of the things used to touch up a poster. Kind of an intermediate between what I was just talking about, how you mix it with the airbrush, and what you use. Typically, the best thing to start with are these pencils. Here's the Dewart, here's the Faber-Castell. We just went to town and bought everything we could that was available at the local Texas Art Supplies. I know some of the known restorers use a different, it's like a I can't remember the exact, but it's a signature pencil, and they're very good, and there's some research done on that, and the varying levels of watercolor pencils, the better the pencil, the less grain that is left behind once it's wet. And there's, you can get on the internet and search up some of that if you really are interested. The other thing that we use most often when we're trying these to do airbrush is this. It's called, I'm going to probably pronounce it wrong, but I call it gouache. And it is a stronger pigment. You can buy regular watercolors, which is essentially the pencil. These are just, they're held together with, my understanding is they've got gum arabic that holds it together. And I could be wrong. I'd have to get on the internet and do a double research on that. But this has a lot more pigment in it. The gouache, it has a lot more pigment in it. So when it goes down a lot darker. It's also thicker. So if you build up too much of it, it could crack when it dries. I've never had that issue. The other thing with this, the gouache, is you have to put gum arabic in your airbrush mix, or it becomes very smudgeable. You can smudge it, what they call it. I think there's a technical term for it. I'm not all up into these technical terms, but I think it's smoochability. I think that can be a technical term, smoochability. But you'll mix gum arabic, gouache, some distilled water or regular water. I've never had issue with using interchangeably. And the idea is when you put it in the airbrush, you want it to be a milky consistency. The other thing you can use, I think this was also a suggestion. This was a watercolor. Dr. P.H. Martin's watercolor. I've only really used the black, and it does go down really well. It takes several coats. But again, you take this, put some gum arabic in it to make it as a binder, and that works really well. Some examples of brushes, like if you're going to brush, you can mix. Sometimes for small work you'll want to mix and then use a brush. This is actually a model brush. You can see the tip's really fine. You can use that, or you can use any type of brush. But the model brushes, here's another one that's got a really small tip, or you can really, usually if you're going to use something real thick, you might as well airbrush. This is pretty unique. It's not unique, but it's I found this at a medical supply store, and it's basically a Q-tip on a very long stem, and so you can be very precise with it, and I've used that. The other thing, a big question, is this stuff called fixative. Some believe it's a no-no. It does put a coating on the paper. It is what they call workable. Supposedly you can erase it. I've tested it and put it down and then wetted it, and it does take some time, but it becomes removable. But I'm afraid that if this is put on, in all likelihood, if you did remove it, it would damage the poster. But what this does is, if you've done a good job of restoring it, you want to put something down to keep, say, moisture, or if you've redone an entire piece of the poster, and then you you know, it's got watercolor on there. If somebody goes up with their thumb, they can disrupt that area, you know, or if moisture builds up behind the frame or the glass, it can affect that fixed part. So you know, this also builds a consistency of presentation. So when I say that, and I might have to do another video on the kind of like maybe do half of an area that's been touched up, and then apply the fixative so you guys can see what it looks like. There's also different types of fixative. There's another type of fixative that I had experimented with, and it actually changed the color. This one does pretty well. It doesn't change the color, you know, when you spray it on. The other one actually darkened the touch-ups, which was disappointing because there was nothing I could do about it after it was done. So yeah, I mean, no, this is, I personally, if my own posters, this doesn't bother me. You know, it's acid-free, archival, they use it on photographs, but of course it all comes down to your personal preference. If you don't want to use it, when you lay this gouache on, it is matte finish. So if you're putting it on anything from 1970s or beyond with a glossy finish, it's gonna, you know, straight on, it's not going to be an issue, but looking from the side, you can see the difference in sheen, and you know, it can be distracting. And if you do use the fixative, what it'll do, the other thing I've started doing is, instead of spraying an entire poster, you just spray the part that you worked on. You know, originally I had this theory that, you know, you spray the entire poster, it gets a matte finish and it looks a lot better. But if you focus it on the areas that you're working on, then you're not really affecting the entire poster. You're just fixing where you worked. So, you know, this is a big controversial thing. It seems like, at least on the forum. Personally, you know, acid-free, archival, safe. As long as the work underneath is good, I don't see any issue with it. I really don't, because you don't want anything to smear later. You don't want, you know, fading, stuff like that from moisture, bleeding. I mean, you know, in theory, if you know, moisture could build up behind a frame and it could run colors together. You know, I don't know. I've never seen this, but you know, this does a good job. It really does make a difference in how it looks, and you know, you can't, if you do it right, there are times, and I think this has been said, you can't really tell where work's been done and where work hasn't, because you've created consistent glossiness to the poster. Other than that, you know, when I mix the paint in a little bit, maybe I'll show you, but the milky consistency is key. Another thing that you can do, sorry, if you put enough gum arabic in a gouache solution, it starts to get glossy. So I experimented with that too. If you put enough gouache, you can get a glossy paint, you know, and then the fixative, you know, you still have to match the gloss. But let's say you're working on a high gloss poster. If you put enough gum arabic mixed with the color, you can achieve a certain amount of glossiness. The other way to, of course, achieve glossiness, this is a Teflon bone, but I have a book, a creasing bone that's actually bone, and that one works better for making something shiny than, say, a Teflon bone. I can't find it at the moment, unfortunately. But these are just a few tools that, the different types of colors. You know, the gouache, you can buy expensive gouache. You can buy, I bought these are relatively expensive, about $20 a tube, you know, because these are a little bit better. We use black and white quite a bit, and then we have some pigment, so we bought a whole set of pigments. Actually, they're here, just to, you know, when you're mixing the paint and for the airbrush. And you can do the same and use a brush to paint it as well. So there's just a little quick overview of the stuff that I use. Of course, I'm no professional. This is all self-taught. So you know, you don't want to ever say you can be doing it all wrong, but be perfectly honest, I could be doing it all wrong. It seems that I'm getting good results with this type of these mediums, so I'm pretty happy with them. and nobody else will tell you anything. So anyway, that's just an overview on the colors and touch-ups.